Okay, some applications of GP questions here. Now, by this I don't mean things like home loans and really harder applications of GPs that we get into later on in the HSC course. I more mean an applied example of the basic skills that you're learning here in this part of the course. So rectangles of the same height are cut from a strip and arranged in a row. The first rectangle has a width of 10 centimetres. The width of each subsequent rectangle is 96% of the previous rectangle. So as we can see here, it'll be 10 centimetres, the next one will be 9.6, and then the following one will be 9.6 times 96% of that. So it's going to keep getting smaller and smaller. Find the length of the strip required to make the first 10 rectangles. Okay, so let's start setting this up. We've got a GP this time, so that means we've got a first term of 10 centimetres and a ratio of 0.96. So that means that our Tn is 10 times 0.96 to the n minus 1. Okay, so if we want to go and find the length of the strip required to make the first 10 rectangles, okay, well that's going to be a sum type question. So we could go find the 10th rectangle, and it's going to start getting very small. But if we want to go find the first 10 rectangles, well then it's going to be a sum question. We've got the sum of our geometric series is a outside of r to the n minus 1 over n minus 1. Okay, we've got all those things here. We know that n is 10. So that means a is 10 outside of 0.96 to the power of 10 minus 1 over 0.96 minus 1. I've gone and used this formula in its standard form here. You will see sometimes if the ratio is less than 1 to go rewrite this and say 1 minus r to the n over 1 minus r. It doesn't really matter. You'll end up with a negative over a negative. It comes out the same. And what we end up with there as our answer is 83.79 centimetres. Now that makes sense if we think about it. The first one's going to be 10, then 9.5, then a little bit less than 9.5, a little bit less than that again. So 10 strips is going to be about 83 centimetres. The second one here, explain why a strip of length 3 metres is sufficient to make any number of rectangles. Okay, well, this one you've got to stop and think for a second here and say, well, what's going to happen as the rectangles keep getting smaller? We're going to keep cutting away from this now 3 metre strip, but ultimately the rectangles are going to become so short as n progresses. So as we cut the 100th rectangle, the 200th rectangle, then they end up being very, very narrow, and what we end up with is a limiting sum here. So we end up with a sum as n approaches infinity. Now our formula for that is a over 1 minus r, and in this case our first is 10 centimetres. Well, actually I'm going to go 0.1 because our answer here is in metres, over 1 minus 0.96, and if we put that one into our calculator, what we end up with is 2.5 metres. Okay, so therefore as n approaches infinity, we use approximately 2.5 metres of material. So 3 metres is going to be more than enough. Okay, which is less than 3 metres. Okay, so 3 metres is going to give us more than enough to be able to make any number of rectangles we'd like. Okay, here, the number of members of a new social networking site double every day. On day 1 there were 27, day 2 there were 54. How many will there be on day 12? On which day was the number of members first greater than 1 million? And then we'll look at part 3 in a second. So, first of all, A is 27. My ratio, it's a GP, doubles, timesing it by 2 every day. So my ratio is 2. So my nth term is 27 times 2 to the n minus 1. Okay, now when n is 12, that means I'll have 27 times 2 to the power of 11, which is 55,296 members on the 12th day there. On which day does the number of members, on which day was the number of members first greater than 10 million? Okay, well what we're looking for is t to the n equals 10 million. So that means that 27 times 2 to the n minus 1 equals that 10 million. Okay, well that'll mean 2 to the n minus 1 equals 10 million divided by 27. Now we will need to use a little log here, and all it means is you will learn logarithms next year, but the basic idea is the log of this answer over the log of our base here, which is 2, and what we end up with is n equals, I've in the same process I'm going to add 1 here. I end up here with about 19.5, which ends up being the 20th day. Okay, so on the 19th day, you'll end up with just less than 10 million followers. Well, actually, it'll be significantly less than 10 million because we're doubling each day. But on the 20th day, you'll find that we hit about, I think it's about 14 million, as opposed to about 7 million on the 19th day. Okay, so in that situation, it wouldn't matter if it was 19.1 days. We've still got to round up, because if we just think logically about it, we'd stop and say, well, on the 19th day, there will not be 10 million, but somewhere between the 19th and the 20th day, or somewhere on the 20th day, they will hit those 10 million followers. Now, part 3 here. The site earns half a cent per member per day. How much money did the site earn in the first 12 days? Okay, well this is going to be a sum question, because it's how much did they earn in the first 12 days. That's the total of the 12 days. What we'll find here is we're going to have to use a sum. So we're going to have the sum of 12 days is going to be, now the important thing to remember here, they had 27 members on the first day, but they only earned half a cent per member. So the first term is actually 13.5. Okay, or they earned 13.5 cents on the first day, 27 on the second day, 54 on the third day. So essentially they earn half as much as the number of members, and that answer is of course in cents. Outside of 2 to the power of 12 minus 1 over 2 minus 1. Of course, our ratio still being 2, it still doubles per day, it just starts off half as small. So what that ends up being, if we go to our calculator, is 552825. Now, of course, that's in cents. Not a particularly helpful answer. So it's 552.825. Now we're asked to give that to the nearest dollar, which is $553. And we should note that that's the nearest dollar. Okay. So that earns us our 2 marks there. So overall, in the first 12 days, they've earned $553. If we kept going and we went and found the 18th, 19th, 20th days, they're going to be earning a lot of profit, because if you think about it, if you've got 14 million members on the 20th day, well, that means you're earning 7 million cents or $700,000 on that 20th day. So they'll end up making a lot of money off this if we kept on adding these numbers, adding on these days, considering it's going to double per day.